Hello everyone, I'm Jazzy Pandi and I'll be the one presenting tonight. Let me ask you a question. When you read a story, an article, or even a textbook, what form of writing are you usually reading? Most of what we read every day is called prose. So pros help us communicate ideas, share information, and tell stories because it often uses a conversational tone. It allows readers to connect more easily with the text and its characters. Today, we will learn what prose is, how it works, and why understanding it is important. Here's the definition of prose. Prose is commonly defined as a form of written or spoken language that is not written in verse. This means it does not follow rhythmic or metrical patterns like poetry. It is written in the sentences and paragraphs. To better understand prose, we also look the word prosaic. This term means something that is plain, straightforward, and lacking elaborate imagination. However, this does not mean prose has no imagination at all. In fact, imagination is still present, but it is expressed in a more controlled and logical way. So here's the prose versus poetry. I have here a sample of prose and poetry, and let us examine how they are different. Let us read them together. The old car. The old car slowly dragged down the street like the caboose of a steam engine train. The car goes up the hill, it goes kaboom, ka-chunk. The car is old and weathered with rust covering the entire body like a cancer consuming its victim. Wheels and tires wobble like a drunk bomb on his way home from the bar. Hubcaps are gone along with all the mirrors and extras on the car. Black smoke flows out the rotten tail peeps like the smoke out of an old cob pipe. The local junkyard had seen better cars than this. The interior was a dusty brown with holes covering almost every square inch of the seat covers. The ceiling was hanging down and the rust had eaten through the roof like a belly goat through a tin can. This old car is my old car, and it is as faithful as a good old dog by always starting and getting me from where I need to go. Old car. I pass it every day after school, and I see my dad's old car sitting in the drive. I has caught some rust, and the tires are worn and flat. The windshield is cracked, and you can see through the bottom floor, and flowers are growing out of it. Then I went to my dad and asked why. Why do you keep holding on to an old car? He turned and smiled. He said, "Son, the memories. The memories of an old life that has taken hold. Alas, it is but an old car, but something are still gold." And then I realized his heart is still in love with an old plane. So, poetry written in lines and stanzas uses rhythm and meter, expresses emotion in a free-flowing and imaginative way. Meanwhile, prose, written in sentences and paragraphs, uses natural everyday language, expresses ideas in a clear, logical, and organized manner. While poetry emphasizes emotion, prose emphasizes reason and clarity. And now, the characteristic of prose. So, prose has the following features. So, straightforward language, clear and easy to understand. Logical flow of ideas, organized from the beginning to end. control expression of emotions. Conversational tone builds connection with readers. So prose is used in stories and novels, essays and articles, debates and arguments, scientific and technical writing. Unlike poetry, prose allows for argumentation, experimentation, and detailed discussion. So here's also the structure of prose. Prose is made up of sentences, express complete thoughts, paragraphs, group related ideas together. These work together to present a single idea or unit of meaning. Understanding prose involves more than just knowing word meanings. Readers must see how ideas connect across sentences, follow the logical structure of this text, interpret the overall message. And now, rule of the reader schema. Each reader brings their own background, knowledge, or schema when reading. Because of this, the same text can be understood in different way. Meaning is created through interaction between the reader and the text. And also the importance of understanding prose. Studying prose help learners to develop essential skills such as identifying main ideas, understanding text structure, making inferences, expanding vocabulary, improving overall reading comprehension. In general, to summarize, prose is a form of language written in sentences and paragraphs. It is logical, clear, and structured. It differs from poetry in style and purpose. Understanding prose improves comprehension and language skills. Understanding prose is an important step toward becoming a better reader and communicator. The more you read and analyze prose, the better you will understand ideas, language, and the world around you. And now let's proceed to origin and the meaning of prose. The word prose is derived from the Latin expression prosa oratio, which literally means straightforward or direct speech. This origin already gives us an idea of what prose is. It is a language that is direct, clear, and natural. Prose can be defined as a style of writing or speaking that is expressed in a straightforward and conversational manner rather than in a poetic form. Now, the nature of prose as a form of writing prose is written in continuous form, uses sentences and paragraphs, follows the natural flow of speech, observes standard grammatical rules, does not follow metrical or arithmetic patterns like poetry. It may be creative, such as stories, novels, or non-creative, such as essays, reports, and conversations. In simple terms, prose is the kind of language we use in everyday communication. Yes, so let us look at some examples. So here's the text. I will not be doing weather because you have the best weatherman in the Philippines. Kim Atienza. Everyday conversations such as talking with friends, classroom discussions, and interviews. These examples show how prose reflects natural and ordinary communication. Alright, thank you. Now that we already understand what prose is, its origin, and some examples, the next important question is what are the different types and varieties of prose that will be discussed by the next reporter. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So, I will be reporting about the types and varieties of prose. Prose is a form of writing that uses ordinary language and follows natural speech, unlike poetry. In this report, I will discuss three main types: the descriptive prose, narrative prose, and expository prose. These types are important because they show different ways writers express ideas, emotions, and information. First is descriptive prose. So, descriptive prose is a type of writing used to describe things as they are. It focuses on giving detailed descriptions of scenes, settings, objects, or people. The purpose is to create a clear image in the reader's mind by using sensory details like sight, sound, smell, and feeling. For example, I was looking up when the first clear thunderbolt struck. It blazed against the sky and sea. I could see its shape and perfect reverse colors when I blinked. More followed. The thunder rumbled and shattered as if it could hardly keep up. There were openings in the cloud now as if the sky were torn, and spots of brilliant blue shone above the shallowed sea. So here, when a writer describes a storm, they talk about the bright lightning, the loud thunder, and the dark clouds in the sky. This helps the reader imagine the scene clearly. So descriptive prose is considered more passive because it focuses on observation rather than action. Next is the narrative prose. So this is a type of writing that tells a story or describe events. These events can be external like actions and experiences, or internal like thoughts and emotions. Narrative prose presents events in a clear and realistic way, almost like a sequence of pictures or moments. Unlike descriptive prose, narrative prose is more active because it shows what is happening. It often follows a sequence such as beginning, middle, and end. This type of prose is commonly found in short stories, novels, and personal experiences. Lastly, we have expository prose. So, it is focused on explaining, defining, or giving information about the topic. Its main goal is to make ideas clear and easy to understand. It is factual and direct, and it avoids unnecessary details or emotions. For example, the water cycle is a continuous process that circulates Earth's limited water supply through the atmosphere, land, and oceans. It begins with evaporation, where solar energy heats surface water and transforms it into vapor, followed by condensation in the clouds as the air cools at higher altitudes. Finally, moisture returns to the surface as precipitation, such as rain or snow, replenishing the ecosystems that rely on it for survival. So, this explains the water cycle by discussing evaporation, condensation, and precipitation as a form of expository prose. This type of writing is commonly used in textbooks, essays, and reports because it helps readers learn and understand concepts. In summary, there is no rigid line of demarcation among the three varieties of prose. Any piece of writing does not contain judicious blend of any two or three of this writing. A novel could begin with a descriptive prose to refer to the setting, then could proceed to the narrative. So, descriptive prose focuses on detailed descriptions, narrative prose focuses on telling events or stories, and expository prose focuses on explanation and information. However, there is no strict line in separating these types. A single piece of writing can combine two or even all of three. For example, a story may begin with descriptive prose to show the setting, continue with narrative prose to tell the events, and include expository parts to explain certain ideas. That's all for my part. Thank you for listening.
Good day, everyone. Today I will be discussing about literary prose in fiction. This topic focuses on how stories are written using imaginative and creative language. Fiction allows writers to express ideas, emotions, and experiences through invented stories. So, what is fiction? It is a product of the imagination of man finding its shape in people's stories or events. It can be allegory, romance, or satire. It is created by writers and is not based on real events, although it may be inspired by real life. Fiction takes shape through stories about people or events and can come in different forms, such as allegory, romance, and satire. These forms help convey deeper meanings, entertain readers, or present social messages. So the first one is prose allegory. A prose fiction wherein characters, ideas, and actions are implied and represent something else. Personification of characters is concretely observed. So, prose allegory is a type of fiction wherein characters, ideas, and actions represent something beyond their literal meaning. So, in other words, the story has a hidden message or moral lesson. Characters may symbolize real life ideas such as good and evil. Personification is often used where abstract ideas are given human traits to make the message clearer. An example of prose allegory is the story Animal Farm by George Orwell. So, it is a story about animals on a farm, but each character represents real people and ideas in society. The story shows how power can corrupt leaders, making it more than just a simple animal story, and it has a deeper meaning. The next one is prose romance. So these are stories of supernatural or magical events, fantastic and unrealistic. So, prose romance focuses on stories that involve magical, supernatural, or unrealistic events. These stories are often imaginative and adventurous, and they may include elements like fantasy worlds, heroic journeys, or extraordinary characters. And the goal of prose romance is to entertain and transport readers into a world beyond reality. A good example of prose romance is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. So it tells the story of a girl who enters a magical and unrealistic world filled with strange creatures and impossible events. This shows prose romance because the story focuses on imagination, fantasy, and things that cannot happen in real life. Next one is Fable, a story which uses animals as characters to tell a moral lesson. So, a fable is a short story that teaches a moral lesson. The characters are usually animals that act like humans, and these stories are simple but meaningful. They often end with a clear lesson about behavior or values. I have a given example here, which is the Three Little Pigs. This story tells about three pigs who build houses using different materials. The story teaches a moral lesson, which is the importance of hard work and preparation. Now, parable, a story which illustrates one or more instructive lesson. So, an example of parable is spiritual lessons told by Jesus in the Bible, which is the parables of Jesus. So, these are short stories told by Jesus that use everyday situations to teach moral or spiritual lessons. For example, the parable of the Good Samaritan teaches the importance of kindness and helping others. So, parable is not necessarily about Jesus Christ or anything. You can have other examples of this also. Next is myth, a traditional story written anonymously which explains briefly a custom or a mysterious natural phenomenon. A myth is a traditional story that explains natural events, origins, or beliefs of a culture. Myths often involve gods, goddesses, and supernatural beings. These stories were used by ancient people to understand the world around them. So, an example of a myth is the story of Zeus from Greek mythology. These stories explain natural events and the beliefs of ancient people. For example, Zeus was believed to control lightning and thunder. helping people understand storms because science existed. Next is legend. Stories of creation and origins, whether about an object, a place, or an event. So, a legend is a story that is partly based on real people or events but has been exaggerated over time, and it is usually passed down from generation to generation and may include heroic characters or important historical figures. For example of a legend is the K-drama The Legend of the Blue Sea. Fairy tales, folkloric stories whose motifs are about commonplace expressions and themes that are typical, such as supernatural challenges and restoration, with characters such as cruel king and wicked stepmothers, and which mostly have happy endings. So, fairy tales are stories that involve magic, fantasy, and imaginary creatures like fairies, witches, or talking animals. These stories often include good versus evil and usually have a happy ending. And an example of a fairy tale is The Princess and the Frog. Next is folk tales. Folk tales are stories which consists of one or a combination of many folklore themes or motifs passed on from language to language and country to country. They are also migratory tales. So, folk tales are traditional stories passed down orally from one generation to another. They reflect the culture, values, and traditions of a group of people. Unlike fairy tales, they may or may not include magical elements. And an example of a folk tale is The Legend of Pineapple, ang alamat ng pinya. And last but not the least, satire are humorous stories used to ridicule human vices and follies evident in its plot. So, satire is a form of writing that uses humor, irony, or exaggeration to criticize people, society, or government. Its purpose is not just to entertain but also to point out problems and encourage change. And that would be all for my part. Thank you so much for listening.
Good day, everyone. I'm Rudie and Patague, and today I'll be talking about literary prose in nonfiction. So, we often encounter different forms of writing in our daily lives, from articles to biographies, and understanding these categories help us appreciate how information and stories are shared. So, let us start by defining what nonfiction actually is. So, nonfiction is writing based on factual information, realistic events, and real people. Unlike fiction, it focuses on truth and reality. So, it comes in many forms, including essays, biographies and autobiographies, historical accounts, letters or epistles, diaries, journals, book reviews, literary criticisms, scientific works, and current publications. So this work serves different purposes from documenting history to sharing personal thoughts or analyzing ideas. Our first category is the essay. So, an essay is an analytic and interpretative composition that explores a subject from a personal perspective. It is usually brief, and its main goal is to describe, clarify, argue, or analyze a topic. Essays are often grouped into four main types, which is the narrative, persuasive, expository, and descriptive. Whether it's sharing a personal experience or making a logical argument, the essay gives writers space to express their insights in a structured but personal way. So there are other types of essays, and it will be discussed by Miss Avril Ramos. Next, we have the novel. A novel is a long, complex, invented prose narrative that explores human experiences with events arranged in a clear sequence. It has enough space to develop multiple characters, plot lines, and themes. Famous examples include Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. Even though novels are fictional, they often reflect real emotions, societies, and human nature, which is why they remain so widely read and studied. Third is the short story. As the name suggests, it has a limited length, but it still includes key literary elements, the characterization, unity of theme, cumulative interest, a clear climax, and resolution. So, unlike novels, it focuses on a single event or character arc. Short stories can cover a wide range of studies. They might be mythical tales, stories about gods and figures, anecdotes, or fictional narratives that deliver a clear message or emotion in a concise way. Fourth is the novelette. This form sits right between a short story and a novel. It is longer and more elaborate than a short story, but shorter and less complex than a full length novel. It is crafted so that it can be read in one sitting, and it is designed to produce a single, concentrated effect on the reader. It balances depth and brevity, making it a unique middle ground between the two longer and shorter forms. Lastly is the drama. Drama is written in dialogue and is specifically created to be performed or interpreted by actors. The core of drama is the act of impersonation. Actors take on the role of characters to bring up the story to life in a make-believe world. Through performance, drama conveys themes, conflicts, and emotions, making it a dynamic form of literary prose that connects with audiences through action and speech. So to sum it up, each of these forms, essays, novels, short story, novelette, and drama, serves a unique purpose in sharing ideas, stories, and information. Whether factual or fictional, they all contribute to the rich world of literary prose.
So, good day everyone. I am Avril and Ramos, and I will be discussing the different types of essay and their purposes. So, this explains how each type is used to describe, inform, tell a story, or to persuade. So, by understanding these essay types, we as future educators can choose the best way to express our ideas clearly and effectively. So, we have four types of essay, and they are descriptive, expository, narrative, and persuasive or argumentative. So first is we have the descriptive essay. So it places the picture in your head and it writes a creative story with a compelling plot and it describes an event. So a descriptive essay creates a clear image using sensory details, and it also focuses on describing a person, a place, or an event. So the example of descriptive essay is: the beach glowed under the golden sunset, with waves gently kissing the shore and the salty breeze brushing against my skin. So this example shows how vivid language helps reader imagine a scene like a beach with sunlight and breeze. And now we have the second type of essay, which is the expository essay. So this explains something and it informs and educates the reader about a particular issue, and it investigates a particular subject. Also, in expository essay, the information is factual and presented in a non-biased way and presents both sides of the coin and uses the third person point of view. So it provides detailed explanations and presents ideas clearly for better understanding. And we need to always remember that expository essay explains or informs about a topic using facts and evidence. So it is objective and it is straightforward. So this is an example of expository essay. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants convert sunlight into energy. It occurs mainly in the leaves and requires sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water. So this explains the photosynthesis, and it shows how expository writing gives factual information. So the third on the list is the narrative essay. So narrative essay tells a story and it creates some compelling story on any subject that the one can imagine. So this is an example of narrative essay. Last summer, I got lost in the forest during a hike. As the sun began to set, fear crept in, but I remembered the survival skills my father taught me. So this example tells a personal story about getting lost and learning survival skills. So fourth is we have the persuasive or the argumentative essay. So this essay sells opinion on some topic and it wants the audience to agree, and it is also to convince someone. So this essay aims to convince readers of a certain viewpoint using reasons and evidence. So this is an example of persuasive essay. Schools should start later in the day because students perform better when they are well rested, and leading to improved academic results. So it argues that schools should start later to improve the students' performance. So now we have other types of essay, and this includes the process, cause and effect, compare and contrast, reflective, biographical, nature essay, critical essay, periodical essay, and didactic essay. So first on the list is the process. So it explains how to do something or explains how something works. So a process essay explains how something works or how to do something step by step. So an example of process is to make a cup of coffee. First boil water, then add ground coffee to a filter and slowly pour the hot water over it. So this example explains how to make coffee in simple steps. Second is the cause and effect. So it finds the cause of something and the effects it might have. So this essay explains the reasons or the causes and the results or the effects of a situation. An example of cause and effect is lack of sleep can lead to poor concentration, which affects students' academic performance and overall health. So it shows how lack of sleep affects concentration and health of the student. Next is we have the compare and contrast. So it exposes key differences and similarities between two subjects by comparing them to each other and contrasting them against each other. So this essay discusses similarities and differences between two subjects. So an example of compare and contrast is this. Online learning offers flexibility, while traditional classroom learning provides face-to-face interaction. Both methods have their own advantages, so it compares online learning and traditional classroom learning. Next is the reflective essay. So it describes an experience or event observed or examined where a writer analyzes past experience from his or her point of view. So a reflective essay shares personal experiences and lessons learned. So an example of reflective essay is failing my first exam taught me the importance of time management and consistent study habits. So it explains how failing an exam teaches time management and discipline. Next is the biographical essay. So this tells a story of a person's life, whether it is achievements and aspirations. So this essay tells the life story of a person, including their achievements. An example is that Ray Maligon was a pioneering scientist who discovered radioactivity and became the first man to win a Nobel Prize. So, in this example, it discusses Ray Maligon and his contributions to science. So, next we have the nature essay. So, writing is a creative nonfiction about the environment and or the narrator's encounter with the natural environment. So, a nature essay describes the environment and natural surroundings. So, an example of nature essay is walking through the forest. I noticed how every leaf, bird, and sound created a peaceful harmony with nature. So, it describes the beauty and peacefulness of a forest. Next is the critical essay. So, it analyzes, evaluates, and interprets a text where the author claims how ideas or themes are conveyed. So, a critical essay analyzes and evaluates a text or idea. An example of this essay is the novel explores the theme of identity, showing how the main character struggles between societal expectations and personal desires. So it examines themes like identity and conflict in a novel. Next is the periodical essay. So this refers to published journals and articles in magazine or periodical. So this essay appears in journals, in magazines, or in newspapers. An example of periodical essay is, in today's fast-paced world, social media plays a crucial role in shaping public opinion and communication. So it discusses how social media influences public opinion. Last but not the least is the didactic essay. So it gives instruction that is focused on a second person viewpoint. So a didactic essay teaches a lesson or moral value. An example of didactic essay is, always be honest, even when it is difficult, because integrity builds trust and respect. So it emphasizes honesty and integrity as important values. And this is the end of my report, which is the different types of essay.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you, sir. My name is Jearah Rebuyon, your reporter for tonight. Let us review that literature has been part of our daily lives given its social values. The meaning of literature transcends its technical term, meaning to write. So tonight, we will be learning the strategies in the teaching of literature, specifically prose literature and its objectives. Let's begin. In teaching, prose holds a very special place in the teaching of the English language. So prose is intended for language learning because it develops students' language ability due to its intensive study of language. Also, teaching prose is teaching reading with comprehension, meaning it teaches students the different reading skills such acquiring new vocabulary and content words and many other skills. In other words, class, learners are the most benefited in the teaching of prose. The third one, in teaching prose should be intensive as well as extensive, depending upon the need, the class, and the age of the students. Lastly, it includes the teaching of structures, the vocabulary, grammar, language in general, and the ability to achieve mastery on all the 4 skills of language learning. Okay, is this clear to everyone? If yes, let me proceed to the main objectives of teaching prose. These are the main objectives of teaching prose. Number 1, to develop learners' ability to read aloud with correct pronunciation and rhythm. This means when you read, you sound clear and your voice flows nicely, making it easy for everyone to follow along. Number 2, to enrich vocabulary of the learners. So the more words you know and understand, the better you can understand what you read and express yourself. Third, to enhance your ability to comprehend the meaning of the text. This is all about the understanding what you're reading, not just the words, but the deeper meaning, the story, and ideas the author is trying to share. Number 4, to develop learners' ability to enjoy reading short passages. By exploring different texts, you'll discover the joy and excitement that reading can bring. And lastly, to express your ideas freely, both orally and in writing. This means feeling comfortable sharing your thoughts and opinions, whether you're speaking in class or writing an essay. That's all, everyone. I hope you have listened and learned something from me. Once again, good evening, everyone.
Good day, everyone. So now we will be discussing about planning in teaching prose. Before we start, in planning in, teaching prose has 7 corresponding steps to understand the planning. Now we will start at first, set induction. This is the introduction part of the lesson. The teacher uses techniques like a short story, question, picture, or activity to capture students' attention and prepare their minds for learning. Reinforcements, praise, encouragement help motivate them. Example: showing a picture or asking, "Have you ever experienced this situation?" 2. Announce the topic. The teacher clearly tells students what the lesson is about. Proper gestures and clear communication help students stay focused and understand the goal. Example: today, we will study a short story about friendship. 3. Explain the lesson. The teacher discusses the prose using examples, illustrations, gestures, and clear explanations. This helps students understand the text better. Example: explaining difficult words, summarizing parts, or acting out scenes. 4. Ask developmental questions. These are thinking questions asked during the lesson to check understanding and guide learning. It helps students engage actively. Example: why do you think the character acted that way? What is the main idea of this paragraph? 5. Recapitulate review after teaching. The teacher asks 4 to 5 review questions to summarize the lesson and reinforce learning. Example: who are the main characters? What lesson did the story teach us? 6. Ask evaluation questions. These are more formal questions, often objective type, like multiple choice, true, false, to measure how much students learned. Example: multiple choice about the theme or details of the story. 7. Provide assignment. The teacher gives a task, usually essay type, so students can apply what they learned independently. Example: write a short reflection about the story. Describe your favorite character and why.
Good day, everyone. So this is the continuation of Richche's report, which is all about planning teaching prose still. But let me introduce to you the other ways of planning teaching prose. Teaching prose requires a systematic process so that students can fully understand, appreciate, and apply what they learned from the text. These 10 steps help teachers guide students from introduction to mastery of the lesson. First on the list, we have here introduce the prose lesson. Create interest and attract students' attention. Ask appropriate questions to arouse students for the new lesson. The first step is introducing the prose lesson. This is very important because it prepares the minds of the students for the new topic. The teacher creates interest by asking relevant and thought-provoking questions related to the lesson. This helps students become more curious and motivated to participate. For example, if the prose is about friendship, the teacher may ask students about their own experiences with friendship. This connection between the lesson and real life makes learning more meaningful. Second is teach the structures. Guide students to identify new structures and highlight the elements of pattern and their order and nature. In this step, the teacher helps students identify the structure of the prose. This includes recognizing sentence patterns, paragraph organization, themes, and the flow of ideas in the text. Students learn how the author arranges thoughts and develops meaning. Understanding structure improves reading comprehension and helps students see how effective writing is formed. It is also develops their critical thinking and writing skills. Third, we have divide text into smaller units. Break the text into 2 smaller, more manageable units. Long passages can be difficult for students to understand at all once, so the teacher breaks the text into smaller and more manageable parts. This allows students to focus on one idea at a time without feeling overwhelmed. Each section can be discussed clearly before moving to the next. This step improves comprehension and helps students retain information better. Fourth is teach vocabulary. Use an object, a model, or a picture to clarify meaning.
Vocabulary teaching is necessary because unfamiliar words can block understanding. The teacher uses pictures, objects, models, or real-life examples to explain difficult words. This makes abstract words easier to understand and remember. Strong vocabulary helps students read with confidence and understand the deeper meaning of the prose. It also improves their speaking and writing abilities. Fifth is model reading by teacher. Teacher reads the passage carefully with correct pronunciation of the words, phrases, and intonation because he or she is being observed and imitated by his or her students. Model reading means the teacher reads the passage aloud first, using correct pronunciation, proper stress, pauses, and intonation. Students listen carefully and observe how words should be spoken correctly. This serves as an example for students to imitate. It is especially helpful in improving pronunciation, fluency, and listening skills. It also helps students understand the emotion and tone of the passage. Sixth is silent reading by students. Students are given time to silently read the passage. After listening to the teacher, students are given time to read the passage silently by themselves. This allows them to focus, reflect, and understand the text independently. Silent reading helps improve concentration and personal comprehension. Students can identify important ideas, ask questions in their minds, and connect the lesson to their own understanding. Next is test comprehension. Teacher checks the student's comprehension ability by asking questions to students. The teacher checks students' understanding by asking questions about the passage. These questions may focus on the main idea, characters, setting, message, or important details. This step helps determine whether students truly understood the lesson. It also encourages participation and critical thinking. If students struggle, the teacher can immediately provide clarification. The eighth one, it is test application. Teacher checks the student's achievement orally or in written type. In this step, students are asked to apply what they have learned either through oral responses, written activities, or classroom discussions. This shows whether they can use knowledge beyond simple memorization. For example, students may explain the moral lesson of the story or relate it to real-life situations. Application strengthens deeper learning and proves true understanding. 9 is loud reading by students. Students read the taught units aloud one by one in class. These help improve pronunciation, confidence, and speaking skills. It also allows the teacher to identify reading difficulties and correct mistakes immediately. Loud reading builds communication skills and helps students become more comfortable expressing themselves in front of others. The last one or the last step is we have give assignment. Teacher gives assignments to students. Homework reinforces the lesson and allows students to continue learning outside the classroom. Assignments may include answering questions, writing reflections, or preparing for the next lesson. This encourages responsibility, independent learning, and continuous practice. It also helps the teacher assess students' understanding beyond classroom participation. So those steps I have mentioned earlier in teaching prose are important because they provide a clear and organized way of helping students learn effectively. Each step supports the text, starting from introducing the lessons up to giving assignments for further practice. This method ensures that students not only read the prose but also understand its meaning, improve their vocabulary, develop reading skills, and apply lessons in real life. Effective prose teaching builds comprehension, confidence, critical thinking, and communication skills. Through this process, learning becomes more engaging, meaningful, and successful for both teachers and students. And that concludes my part. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. So here is my report about preparing in the teaching of prose. We know what is prose and now, so we can discuss about how to prepare in teaching of prose. So first off is the motivation. So motivation includes all tactics to get the students ready for today's lesson. This includes some teaching aids like flashcards, models, charts, and posters, and other materials aids to provide brief intro about the lesson. We can also ask some questions before beginning the lesson to arouse the students' curiosity to the new lesson. The questions should be connected to the lesson so that we don't stray away from the lesson. After motivation, we proceed to presentation. So, for presenting the lesson, we should consider to keep the following in check: the students' attention, retention, and if the students are listening or not. In presenting the lesson, we should start by testing if our voice is audible all around the classroom, if it's clear, loud, clear pronunciation, intonation, stress, rhythm, styles, or any other so the students can understand clearly every word that comes out on our mouths. We can also let the students read the passage loudly one by one to ensure that their incorrect tone, pronunciation, fluency, and if ever they are wrong, we can correct them immediately so that they will not repeat the mistakes again. If ever the students are having difficulty in reading, we can expose some new words to them and explain difficult words, structures, idioms, phrases, and other grammatical items. Also, by doing this, they can clarify, and this is also the main purpose of the prose teaching, exposing them new words. Immediately, we can let them silent reading the passage to clarify each and every point individually so that they can increase their comprehension. After the teaching, recapitulation means that the teacher will sum up today's lesson, clear students' doubt, and explain few words or sentences which is needed more repetition and elaboration. Then we can evaluate the students if the set objectives are being met or not. We can do different kinds of evaluation like questions, assignments, blackboard work, or dramatization to test if the objectives are met and if the students have understand. Mercy being in listening and good evening.
Good evening, everyone. So, allow me to introduce myself first, but as you can see my name on the screen and my name also. But good evening once again. I am Juliana Rizal Tagalog, and I will be presenting our topic for tonight, which is the general steps in teaching prose, silent reading, and prose performances. Now, first, let us understand what prose is. Prose refers to a form of written or spoken language that follows a natural flow of speech. Examples of prose include short stories, essays, and novels. It is one of the most common ways we express ideas in literature. Now, in teaching prose, there are two important strategies that teachers commonly use. These are silent reading and prose performance. Now, let us start with silent reading. What is silent reading? So, silent reading is the process of reading a text quietly without speaking. This helps the students focus more on uh, understanding the text rather than pronunciation. It also allows them to connect personally with what they are reading. Now, the general steps in teaching silent reading, what are those? So, the first step in teaching silent reading is motivation or pre reading activity. In this step, the teacher introduces the topic and tries to get the students interested. Yes, this can be done by asking questions or showing pictures related to the story. The second step is getting the purpose or setting the purpose. Here, the teacher gives a clear goal, like asking students to identify the theme or understand the main idea while reading. Now, we have here next is vocabulary preparation, whereas the teacher introduces a difficult words beforehand so students won't struggle while reading. Then comes the silent reading proper. So students read the text quietly on their own, while the teacher ensures that the environment is calm and focused. Now, after that, we have the comprehension check. The teacher asks questions to see if the students understood the text. Now, these questions can be about facts, meanings, or deeper ideas. Next is discussion and analysis. Ooh, students share their thoughts, interpretations, and opinions about the text. Finally, we have the follow up activity whereas such as summarizing the story or answering worksheets to reinforce learning. Now that are the general steps in teaching silent reading. Now let's move on to prose performances or performance. So, what is prose performances? Prose performance is when students express a prose text through speaking, acting, or even storytelling. This helps bring the story to life and improves their communication skills. Now we have the first steps of, as you can see, those are the objectives of prose performances before we proceed to our general steps of prose performance. Yeah. So that are the objectives. Now we have here the general steps in teaching prose performance. So the first step is selection of text. The teacher chooses a suitable piece that matches the student's level and interest. Yeah, so that is the selection of text. Now, next is understanding the text. Students analyze the characters, setting, plot, and theme to fully understand the story. Then we have modeling by the teacher. So the teacher demonstrates how to properly deliver the lines using correct tone, expression, and even the gestures. Yes, and after that, we have the practice and rehearsal. So students practice their performance. It's either individually or in groups. Now, next is the performance proper, where students present in front of the class. Then comes the feedback and evaluation. The teacher and classmates give comments to help improve the student's performance. Now, lastly, is the reflection, where they share what they learned from the activity. Now, that is the general steps in teaching prose performance. Now, to sum it up, silent reading helps students understand and analyze the text, while prose performance helps them express and appreciate it more deeply. Now, when combined, these two strategies create a more effective and engaging way of teaching prose. So, that is the importance of combining silent reading and prose performance. And that ends my report. Thank you for listening. You can just pause for the conclusion. Yes, to conclude my report. And once again, thank you so much. I am Juliana Tagalog. And remember, the way you speak to yourself matters. Appreciate who you are today. Maraming salamat. Maayong gabi sa tanan. Enjoy.
Good evening, everyone, especially to you, Sir Maligon. So, I am Marvin B. Tajado. This time, I will be discussing about the general steps in teaching prose. We have dramatic performance, how to do dramatic performance, and features in dramatic performance. So, general steps in teaching prose. First is silent reading. It allows a learner to read without voicing words. It is a time when learners read quietly alone or together. Silent reading reduces cognitive load and helps the learners to comprehend and remember what was read because it allows learners to concentrate better and absorbs from the text faster. So silent reading also helps reduce mental effort because they can focus entirely on understanding the meaning. It improves comprehension, memory, vocabulary, and reading fluency. So we have prose performances are combination of music and spoken words moods of performances. First is lyric mood. It is intended for private contemplation. It focuses on personal thoughts and emotions. It is meant for quiet reflection rather than acting out characters. So second is the dramatic mode. Characters are being defined. It means it involves characters interacting through dialogue and action. It brings the story to life through performance. So third is the epic mode, combining lyric and dramatic mood with a narrator telling about the characters. It combines narration with action. A narrator tells the story while characters also perform parts of it. So next is the dramatic performance. It is an act of presenting a play or music. It is the act of performing a drama. Written words are being dramatized using gestures and movements, and dialogues are strongly characterized. It is a very effective strategy in teaching prose because it helps develop learners' interaction skill, such as exposure to language, conversation, understanding meaning, and ordering and sequencing in conversations. It is also develops skills in critical reading, critical thinking, and creative writing. So, how to do dramatic performance? Hmm. First is connect personal experiences in the events in the drama by using good questioning techniques. So it connects to a personal experiences, so relate the story to real life experiences to deepen understanding. So second is visualize characters while reading stage direction. So it imagine how characters look and behave based on stage direction. So third is evaluate the words and action of character and find out what motivate them. So it is think about why characters act the way they do. So next is the notice character changes. So it observe how characters develop throughout the story. Next is the compare characters. It identifies similarities and differences between them. So next is the analyze monologues and soliloquy. It is a study long speeches to understand a character's thoughts and feelings. So next is read the play aloud. So it is a aspect that practice speaking lines to improve expression and clarity. So next is the identify the setting. It determines where and when the story takes place. So next is evaluate how the setting affects the mood of the play. So it understand how the setting influences mood and events. So last is identify major and minor conflicts. It recognize the main and minor problems in the story. So lastly, features and dramatic performance. First is it should be performed on stage in front of an audience. So it is presented in front of an audience to to communicate meaning clearly. So next is the it has to have actors, dialogues, and actions. So of course, these elements work together to bring the story to life and make it engaging. So I hope you've learned something to what I have discussed today. So God bless everyone.
Good evening, everyone. This is Janna Ayako P. Torres, and let's now proceed to another discussion, which is materials and resources in teaching prose. Now, before we begin this discussion, I want you to reflect on this simple question. So, when you read a story, what helps you understand it better aside from the text itself? You might be thinking of videos, explanations, or visuals. Well, you're correct, because all of these are examples of materials and resources. The importance of materials and resources. Teaching materials and resources play a crucial role in the effective teaching of prose. They, first, improve students' comprehension and engagement. Second, they enhance academic performance and reading skills. Third, they support diverse learning styles. And fourth, they sustain interest in literary texts. Please remember this key idea. Materials must be aligned with the lesson objectives and targeted reading skills. Materials and resources are essential in teaching prose because they improve comprehension, enhance performance, and make learning more engaging. So without these materials and resources, reading can feel very difficult for the students and even the teacher. But with the right support, stories become clearer and more meaningful. Let us first begin with printed materials. These are books, textbooks, modules, and short story collection. It provides a primary source of prose text. It allows close reading and annotation. It also offers structured literary content. Like, students read a short story from a textbook and identify elements such as plot, setting, and characterization. So these provide the actual prose text itself. They allow you to read, reread, annotate, and analyze. So when reading a short story, you can highlight the conflict or underline important details. This helps you engage deeply with the text. Second is the lesson plan. It serves as the teacher's roadmap for instruction. It organizes activities, strategies, and assessments. And it also ensures alignment with learning competencies. So a lesson plan may include pre-reading questions, guiding reading tasks, and post-reading analysis of a narrative text. Although you do not see the lesson plan, it is the teacher's guide and it organizes the flow of the lesson. So because of this, discussion appears structured and easier to follow. The third one is curriculum guide. It contains learning standards, competencies, and objectives. It guides content selection and teaching approaches, and it also ensures consistency in literature instruction. So selecting a prose text that aligns with a competencies like analyzing themes or cultural context. So a curriculum guide outlines what you need to learn. It ensures that the lessons being given are aligned with the competencies needed. Let's say if the goal is to analyze a theme, the teacher should select a prose text that will allow the students to practice that specific skill. Fourth one is the PowerPoint presentation. It presents content visually and systematically. It highlights key concepts and discussion points. And it also supports guided discussion, like slides showing story structure, like exposition, rising action, climax, etc., while discussing a short story. So a presentation will help you present ideas clearly and visually. So instead of just imagining the concepts, you can see them organized on the screen. It will help you understand the idea step by step, especially if it's a procedure such as a structure of a story, making it easier to understand. The fifth are videos. Videos provide audio-visual representation of prose text. It helps students visualize scenes and characters, and it could also increase engagement and comprehension. Let's say showing a film adaptation of a short story to compare with the read text. Videos will provide you the audiovisual support and able to imagine the concept more successfully. So they will help you visualize characters, setting, and events that may be difficult to imagine just through text alone. It will help you deepen your understanding of the story. So the sixth one are internet resources. It offers wide access to prose text and literary analysis. It also enables independent and flexible learning. It can also provide interactive learning platforms. So students can access online articles or digital libraries to explore different interpretations of a story. Because the internet can allow you to access a wide range of learning materials. Even without a physical classroom, you can still explore stories, summaries, and analysis online. This will make the learning flexible and accessible anytime. The seventh one are graphic presentation. Graphic presentations refer to story map, graphic organizers, timelines, and any other charts. It simplifies complex ideas. It could also help students organize thoughts, and it will also improve comprehension and retention. Like using a story map to break down characters, conflict, and resolutions. Again, it could help simplify complex ideas because it can allow you to break down the informations into chunk digestible learnings. It could lead to a more successful understanding and retention. And finally, we have the teaching aids like Blackboard, laptop, projector, and whiteboard. It supports effective content delivery. It makes lessons more interactive and efficient. Using a projector to display passages for class annotation and discussion. Teaching aids can help support lesson delivery. Let's say, for example, in an online setting, these tools will help you present materials clearly through your screen. Now, here are our key takeaways for this discussion. Effective teaching of prose requires first, appropriate and varied materials, second, alignment with objectives, and third, engaging and interactive resources. The right combination of materials transforms prose from mere text into meaningful learning experiences. To summarize our learnings for today, materials and resources are that important in making prose more understandable and engaging, as well as relevant for our students. As you continue learning and soon teaching, try to identify which resource will help you and your student the most. So this will improve one's reading and comprehension skills. So that's it for our discussion tonight, which is all about materials and resources in teaching prose. Let us proceed with another discussion. Again, this is Janna Ayako P. Torres. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something from our discussion.
Good evening, everyone, especially to you, Sir Ray. I am Rona Traya, and I am the second to the last one to present in our group, which is the group 4. And this evening, we'll proceed to the competency 4, which is all about assessment and teaching prose. So teaching prose mainly focuses on helping students improve their reading comprehension or their ability to understand what they read. So, improving their reading comprehension, it is not just all about teaching them how to read words or text, but really getting the meaning behind those what they read. That is why learning must always be checked or assessed. And to do this, teachers must give questions or activities just to see if the students truly understand what they have read or what was being taught to them. These assessments are also important because they help the students to develop higher order thinking skills. So this means that they get to analyze, compare, and think more deeply when reading. So in short, they are not just passive learners who receives or receive informations. Now let's talk about the major assessment techniques and teaching pros. So there are actually three, but I'll only be discussing the two of them. So the first one we have here is text search. So text search allows the students to comprehend what they read and complete the puzzle the author intended for the readers to solve. So in this activity, the teacher gives questions and the students find the answers directly from what they have read or the material given to them. So this shows if they really understood what they are reading. So text search is also helpful for teachers in a way that it shows if their teaching methods are effective or if there's a need for them to improve their lesson. So in other words, it serves as their basis, no, to further improve their future instruction. Now let's move on to the second technique, which is comparing and contrasting. So this technique helps the students to think more deeply by looking at how two things are similar and how they are different or how they differ from each other. So because of this, it develops their higher order thinking skills, which means that the students they go beyond simple answers. So they start thinking in a more critical way. So it also helps them to pay attention to small but important details. So by comparing ideas, they can better understand even abstract or difficult concepts. So lastly, it helps the students to identify and clarify vague ideas between two concepts. So when two ideas seem confusing or vague, comparing and contrasting helps them to separate and to understand each one better. So here's a simple example of comparing and contrasting of prose and poetry. So we can compare them based on different aspects like their language, ideas, line breaks, and purpose. So in line breaks, pwede na tayo ibutang that a prose is written in paragraphs. So continuous ang iyang sentences. Meanwhile, in poetry, it is written in lines and stanzas, right? So sa nanang way, we can see how these two literatures differ from each other. So that's it for my part, and the last reporter will discuss the other technique in teaching prose.
A pleasant day to everyone. I am Lawrence Vilbar, the final presenter of this group, and the topic that we're going to be tackling today is about journaling. So, what is journaling? Journaling is a regularly writing practice that expresses the writer's thoughts, feelings, experiences, and reflections. It helps them to process their experiences and learning. It can be written in personal or academic form. So journaling is more than just writing. It helps writers understand their thoughts, reflect on experiences, and improve how they communicate ideas. Now, there are three main purposes of journaling. These are connecting, reflecting, and critical thinking. Let's start with the very first one. So what do we mean when we say connecting? So in connecting, journaling links personal experiences to lessons. It also helps students relate to topics and makes learning more meaningful. So connecting means students relate what they learn to their own lives or prior knowledge. This makes lessons easier to understand and remember. So in connecting, the keyword here is relate, because when you journal relatably, the readers or the viewers can easily connect with what you wrote. Okay, so let's move on to the second purpose, which is reflecting. And so, what do we mean when we say reflecting? Right under reflecting, journaling encourages self-assessment. It also identifies strengths and weaknesses, and it promotes personal growth. So, reflecting helps students think about what they learned, what they did well, and what they need to improve. So when we say reflecting, the main or the keyword here is reprocess. Kasi 'di ba, when you reflect, you reprocess. And when you write in general, not just in journaling, when you write in general, one nature of it is that you can go back and read it again. And when you do, 'di ba, you can reprocess it, then you can analyze, hala, nakoy mali diri, kaning part nakoy sobra diri, ay kaning part unnecessary na ni, pwede ni tanggalon. Things like that. So last but definitely not the least is critical thinking. So what do we mean when we say critical thinking? So in here, journaling analyzes ideas deeply. It also forms opinions and judgments. It also improves reasoning and skills. So journaling trains students to think critically as well. Not just accept information, but question and analyze it. So the main word or the key word here is to analyze. Because when you critical think, you don't just accept just for the sake of accepting. You analyze it, diba? You process it, you digest it, just so that you can understand. There's comprehension involved. Okay. So going back, what are the three purposes of journaling? They are connecting, reflecting, and critical thinking. And when we say connecting, it talks about relatability. When we say reflecting, it talks about reprocessing, diba? And when we say critical thinking, it talks about analyzing. Okay. So what are the significance of doing this? No? So the benefits, or one of the few benefits of journaling, is that it improves your writing skills, it develops your brainstorming capabilities, it encourages self-expression, and it tracks your learning progress. Also, as an assessment tool, journaling can help teachers or mentors evaluate learning, show student progress, and reflect the effectiveness of teaching. Especially here on the very last bullet, where the critical thinking part reflects quite a lot. Kasi, di ba, when students write, or no, when teachers discuss, let's say, nag-discuss na, then right after, nagpasulat ang teacher, that's when the teacher can evaluate whether his or her students have understood the discussion. And it also shows if effective ka as a teacher. That's how powerful journaling is. Okay. So there are three types of journaling. You know, why we are trying to understand what this is, even though kanang it could be considered as general knowledge gani nga, everyone knows what journaling is. But do we really know what it truly what it truly is, and what it is truly used for? Here it will, on these three, this is where it will reflect on how people have been doing journaling without knowing nga they're doing journaling. Diba? So there are many types of journaling, but we can narrow most of it down into these three. First is double entry journal, there's also reader response journal, and reflective journal. Okay. So these are what those look like. Try and process these three images. Does it look familiar? Diba? So these three examples are mainly used academically, but actually, each and every time we do journals, unknowingly or subconsciously, we use these three. Let's start with the very left one. Double entry journal. Look at the image. On the left side, it's quotes and passages. On the right side is my responses. Does it look familiar? Yes, we are BS Ed, diba? So this will definitely look familiar. Try and guess kung asan siya familiar. It is on lesson plans. Diba? Diriya sa left side is ang mga istorya ni teacher. And then the right side is the expected answers of the students. So, a double entry journal is a 2-column reading comprehension strategy where readers record specific text evidence on the left and their personal reflections, questions, or analysis on the right. This method promotes active reading, critical thinking, and deeper engagement by connecting text directly to readers' thoughts. Next is reader response journal. Okay, let's look on the middle image. Does it look familiar? Personally, I've encountered this type of journaling. Katong recently, very recently lang kay Miss Ivy. Katong activity niya. So, reader response journal is a personal journal wherein readers record their reactions, questions, connections, and reflections on a text. Used often in education, it helps improve comprehension by shifting focus from simple summaries to deeper personal engagement with literature. That's why Miss Ivy definitely used this type of journal sa ato because it dives even deeper sa kung unsa man atong panlantaw at the time sa katong activity, atong panlantaw sa atong sarili, di ba? It is a good activity when it comes to self-reflection. Yeah. So, on the very right one is the reflective journal. So a reflective journal is a personal record of learning experiences, thoughts, and feelings, commonly used to improve critical thinking, self-awareness, and personal or professional development. This one I've encountered during one of my courses, and my professor was Sir Da. I don't quite remember what he did, but definitely nasa gipabasa sa amua, and then I think it was an activity. Nasa gipabasa sa amua, and then he incorporated this sa as the questions, or to try and reflect what was on the text. Yeah. These three are commonly used in education, especially sa high school, kasi we do a lot of reading during high school. So to conclude, journaling is a simple but powerful tool that can help you learn, think, and grow. And so this concludes my presentation as well as the entire presentation of our group. Thank you for listening and have a great night.